Hello everybody, so today I want to talk about um, how precise, how correct these ancestry tests are, and I'm just gonna give like a few examples so in case you're wondering like should I take an ancestry test? I don't know if I want to title this video, should I take this ancestry test and how correct are they? Okay, so I'm gonna title this video, how should I take an ancestry test and how correct are they? Because a lot of people always wonder like some people say they're not accurate, some people say they don't give this information, so I'm just gonna give my perspective based on my family, based on my history, and based on the DNA and ancestry. So I'm gonna start off by saying my dad is pure indigenous. He comes from a state named Veracruz, and the country is Mexico in Northern America. So he's indigenous. My mom is mixed. She is mixed and she has Spanish and some indigenous um, ancestry, and she comes from the state of Michoacan, Michoacan, which is also Mexico. So my parents are from two different regions, and what did I want to say with that? Okay, so they're from two different regions. So now that I give you that information, I'm gonna talk about the question that a lot of people ask. Does it tell you your tribe? Does it tell you your native group? Does it tell you your culture? Um, However you want to identify it. So no, it does not. On my dad's side, we are Nawa, and it does not say we are Nawa like Ancestry. I'm talking about the the most popular companies, Ancestry and 23andMe. So Ancestry and 23andMe are not gonna tell you your indigenous tribe. So for example, I am Nawa. It doesn't tell me that I am Nawa. I know that because my family, we already know that we speak the language and we have our own traditions, so that's how I know. So unfortunately, these companies will not tell you your tribe. So if you're trying to figure out what tribe you're from, right now, unfortunately, they do not offer that. So, um, so if you're trying to do that, don't count on that yet, but maybe in the future. And another thing is that I want to talk about is how accurate is it at um, how accurate is it at identifying my true origins, my true ancestry. So I'm gonna, for my mom, I'm not sure. Like, her parents never talked about race, they never identify with any race. So I don't know how accurate that is for them. Like for my mom, like I don't know how. Like I can't identify because they don't know their race. So I'm just going based off what they're giving me. But for my dad, since I know he's pure indigenous, meaning that he didn't mix with Asians, he didn't mix with African slaves or Africans in general. He didn't mix with like the Europeans, the Spaniards that came over and killed everybody and invaded and etc. Or he didn't mix, and his family didn't mix with the immigrant Europeans that came over as well. So they didn't mix with any of them, and um, so I'm gonna go with 23andMe. So 23andMe, they updated the results, but here's the thing: before they were saying that my dad was 95.0 Native American, and that he has like 0.1 Chinese, South Asian, and that he had this is called trace regions. So he had 0.3 Spanish and Portuguese, and then 0.2 Central and South Asian, etc., etc. So they updated the results, and now he is 98.5 Native American. They took out the European completely, so now there is no European. He basically has like all Asian. Like they say he is 0.3 Japanese and Korean, and 0.2 Northern Asian. So um, they label him now more Asian. Like before, he had European, which didn't make sense. So just remember, like these companies um, update their result now, and with the update now, they're more accurate. So just be aware of that, and be aware that there's like a little bit of just there's many terms for it. You can say noise, error, um, whatever you want to call it, where it's like saying something but it's not really true, but it's there because of the samples and etc. So just be aware of that. So like I said, my dad is full indigenous, so for them to say that he has like 0.3 Japanese and Korean, um, that's kind of off. That's kind of doesn't make sense. So I'm just waiting for the next update for them, and hopefully like my dad gets 100% Native American, because that's what he is. He's 100%. Like his family did not mix with Asians. He of course Native Americans are Asian, but um, he did not mix with Asians like recently, or like within the last couple decades. They did not mix with Asians, and plus they live in the middle of nowhere, so doesn't really make sense for them to like mix with other Asians. But hopefully, like these ancestry companies update their system and discover something more interesting. Um, but yeah, just be aware of that, because um, like I know my history, so I know that um, we did a mix, and maybe eventually I know that these companies are gonna label my dad 100% Native American, because that's what he is. But again, I'm not complaining. Like these, they pretty got it spot on. Like 98.5. That's still pretty accurate. Like that's still high. So that pretty much makes sense. Let's move on. So another thing is these companies like to tell you your location, like where you're from, and I'm going to have to say beware of that. Be careful, especially if you don't know if you're adopted. Don't be like, oh, they're saying I'm from here. Yes, I didn't know that. I am from here. That's crazy. No, be aware of that. Be careful. I'm telling you, because this happened to my family, and it doesn't make sense. Okay, so like I said, according to 23andMe, they're saying my dad is from Jalisco, Mexico, and then they give other regions. And then one of them is saying that my uncle, my dad's brother, is from Peru. Like their ancestors came from Peru. I'm like, I don't think our ancestors came from Peru. Like they be tripping. Okay, so my dad gets like the closest locations is Jalisco, Guanajuato, Michoacan, Oaxaca. Okay, but none of them have Veracruz. Like that just doesn't make sense. My family has been there for many generations, and for them not to include it, it's kind of weird and just doesn't make sense. And I mean, of course, all these like states are part of Mesoamerica, so my dad is Mesoamerican. Um, but it just doesn't make sense for them not to have like our precise location. Um, so that's just my advice. Be careful with that. Um, However, I would like to point out that when it comes to like getting the precise location, okay, so Ancestry does the same thing. Like they were able to get my mom's precise location where she's from, but they weren't able to get my dad. So for me, they only tell me one region, which doesn't make sense. It's like I'm from two different regions. My family's are from two different locations, yet they're only telling me one. That doesn't make sense. Like um, they should be telling me two. Like, oh, you're from here and from here. This is your precise location. But unfortunately, they don't tell me that. So that is very misleading. And um, but I am gonna give them credit because the company that gives, like, knows where we're really from is Ancestry DNA.com. Like when I go to the, it says indigenous Mexico, it says 80%, and then I go to, it says like my location, and I click on it, and it shows, it circles like a map where we're from. Like it has like this, like a triangle like this, and it has my location on it. So I think that's crazy that it has knows exactly where my mom's side of the family is from. So I think that's pretty cool that um, it shows that. 23andMe does the same. Like they're saying we're from Michoacan, but it doesn't say the exact location. Um, so I mean they're pretty accurate, but the one that's more accurate is Ancestry because they're giving me a picture of the map and location of where we're actually from. Of course, my parents, um, my grandparents, and etc. Migrated a lot, immigrated or migrated. So um, that's where they settle, and that's what they're settled, and that's where they were born slash settle. So however you want to say it, because my parents, my great grandparents, etc., they're mixed. So obviously they're gonna be from other different regions, but ultimately that's where they end up settling in, and some of them were actually born there. So just remember, they're like, since we have Spanish ancestry um, and indigenous ancestry, are they really accurate? Because how come they don't tell me what part of Spain we're from? Because my ancestors were mixed with, well, my mom's ancestors were mixed with Spanish people. So they're not really telling me if I'm like, if my mom is mixed Spanish, why aren't they telling me what part of Spain either? So remember that they're telling you, they're telling me my precise location where where I wasn't born there, but where my mom was born, where her parents were born, and then I don't know about her great grandparents or my great grandparents. I don't know about where they were born. I know they moved around, but they were still pretty. They moved around, but they were still from the same area. Like they didn't move like long or far away. They just moved like a couple miles or a couple distance like away and settling there because war and all this stuff and etc. Different reasons. Everybody has their different reasons. So just remember that. But at least they were able to detect 3 generations back where we're from. So I think that's pretty good and pretty accurate. Um, so I think that's the 3 topics I wanted to talk about. So I hope that helped people deciding whether they want to buy a DNA test or not, an ancestry test. Let me see if I find anything else that I want to talk about. Um, so I'm just gonna share this quick. Let me log into my account from my dad's side because I'm on my dad's account. So let me just do this real quick. I'm sorry. So I'm gonna go DNA relatives. I'm just gonna compare my results real quick. Okay. Because I could compare in another video, but I just want to give the difference in this video. Okay, so 23andMe has me as 81.6 Native American / East Asian, which makes me 80.8% Native American. So remember, 80.8 Native American. And then Ancestry DNA has me at 80% Indigenous American. Mexico. 23andMe has me as 15.4 European, mostly Spanish, like 14.4 Spanish. Um, Ancestry DNA has me as 11% Spanish. So, okay, wait. But then, so then, Ancestry DNA is saying that I have 4% indigenous American from Yucatan Peninsula, and then Northern African 1%, and then Sweden 1%, Wales 1%, Indigenous American Central 1%, Ireland 1%. I don't know how accurate that is. I think like for me, I feel more comfortable with 23andMe with my results, especially because my parents are on there. Both of my parents are on there, and for um, for Ancestry DNA, my mom's only on there. 23andMe is saying that I am 1% Western Asian slash Northern African. Um, Again, Northern Africa 1%. That's the same thing I get with Ancestry DNA. Sub-Saharan African I get 0.7. West African. So let's see if yeah, like I don't know why Ancestry DNA is not saying that I don't have any African in me, like Sub-Saharan African. So I think that's kind of weird because um, with 23andMe it says that I have African ancestry. So, like I say, I'll go with more with Ancestry. I mean, I'll go more with 23andMe because my whole family's on there, like my grandparents, my parents, my uncles, my cousins, they're on there. So I know they're more accurate. Um, but like 20, I mean, Ancestry DNA is still pretty accurate. Go with everyone you want. There's other companies out there too, so if you find something cheaper, go with that other option. If you find something more secure, go with that company that's more secure. Um, yeah, but I've always gone with 23andMe and Ancestry. But there's more companies out there that you could get your results from. You don't just have to rely on these companies. Um, these are the only ones I advertise because these are the ones I'm familiar with, and they're the most popular. So I just talk about these. I don't talk about other ones because I haven't done DNA tests with other ones, so I can't really talk about those. But I hope this video helped everyone, and let me see if I have something else to talk about. Um, so I don't think. Well, this interesting thing that that ancestry, I mean that 23andMe has is this thing called your ancestry timeline. So on it, it says that we had like Native American parents in like full Native American parents in 1940. So I think that's pretty. I think that's pretty cool. Like that is true. Like my grandparents were Native American. They were all Native American, and it tells you like precise. How do you say it? Like how many generations ago was your most recent ancestor for each population? I think that's pretty interesting. Um, Again, my dad only gets Native American on his because he is pure Native American, and then it says like few generations back it says Korean slash Japanese, which I don't know how accurate that is. Maybe it'll be updated in the future, but it's still pretty accurate with the Native American saying from 1940 all the way back. So that is so accurate. Um, so yeah, that's it. I hope I helped some people make a decision. Um, Updates happen every once in a while, so always look out for that. I think it's pretty interesting how the updates work. It's pretty fun when they update your results. Um, and yeah, just hopefully in the future we see more updates.